Hello, everyone. Dan Wolf here from the BigFix product team. And today I am delighted to have Jeremy Phillips with us. He's the IT director for the College of Letters and Science at the University of California, Davis in Davis, California. So welcome, Jeremy.
Good morning.
And today we're going to have another in our series of BigFix customer roundtables to talk about how our dear BigFix customers are using the product, how they're succeeding, the challenges they're facing, and problems they're solving. So again, thanks for coming. So Jeremy, I understand you and UC Davis both have been using BigFix since 2008.
Yep, I
So
believe that's around when we started.
yeah, that's fantastic. And UC Davis is an R1 research university, as you mentioned on our pre-call. So kind of your own city with 40,000 students. So
40,000 students, our own police and fire department, our own utilities, water services, garbage services, not to mention all of the, academics that you would expect at a university.
and then all those endpoints that have to drive all that stuff are things that you have to
Absolutely.
worry about. Yeah, which is fascinating. So describe a little bit more about your environment.
So I think one thing that's pretty common across universities is that we are very distributed, federated organizations. So um, my college manages our endpoints somewhat separately from the rest of campus. Um, the chemistry department manages their own endpoints. So I think, unlike probably a lot of other organizations that use BigFix, a university probably has a lot more operators than most. I think we have something like 150 operators in our BigFix environment,
Mhm.
and most of those are scoped to one department, one college, one school, some subset of the university like that.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the things that we've found about BigFix that we have problems with in tools in almost every other space that we deal with is people assume that you have one team at the top of an organization that is going to be managing whatever this tool does. And that's just not the case for a university. So that's often a challenge for us. And that's one thing that BigFix does really well is right out of the box, it does delegated administration. So you can say, chemistry department, we've created a role for you. We've subscribed your computers to a site just for you. You can do whatever you want to those computers. We can also then layer services on top where we can have a larger, higher level organization, both audit and provide, patching services or something like that across organizations. So it really gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of delegated administration.
No, that's fantastic. And then you also told me earlier about all the different types of kind of one-off instruments and things that have their own management systems. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the diversity that you have to deal with.
So a university is like a small city in a lot of ways, and we really do have just about everything you can imagine. You have EEG machines, mass spectrometers, and then, like I mentioned, we have our own utilities department, so they have all of the SCADA and operational technology systems. We have our own police department that has the ruggedized laptops that are installed in the police cars, and most of that infrastructure is being managed by BigFix.
Mm.
It's diverse in a lot of different ways. As one example, often we bought an instrument, 10 or 15 years ago, and we have to keep that instrument running as long as we can. And sometimes that instrument came with a computer attached to it. Sometimes we had to custom build a computer, and we can't upgrade the operating system on it. We're sort of stuck with it in its current form. Half the time, the manufacturer of the instrument has gone out of business, and we have to keep it running on a shoestring budget.
Wow. So
So
like old Windows 7 versions.
Windows
Uh,
7, sometimes earlier
oh
versions
my
of
gosh.
Windows, old versions of Linux, old versions of Mac OS, really just about everything out there in our environment. And that's another area that BigFix has been great as compared to a lot of other tools that we deal with is
Uh-huh.
uh, a BigFix 10, the latest edition server can still manage even an older client, even if the 10 client won't run on Mac OS 10.10. You can still run the 9.0 or 9.5 client on that and still manage it as a first world citizen effectively. It doesn't really have any significantly reduced functionality.
Mm. No, that's fantastic. So how many total computers is BigFix managing that you
So we
see?
have around somewhere between 16,000 and 17,000 computers in our BigFix environment. And that's truly everything under the sun, from
Wow.
servers to desktops to laptops to mobile devices. All of that's in there.
And that doesn't include students because you don't manage student endpoints at all. It's kind of they're on their own, right? For
That is true. We don't have we're not doing any kind of endpoint management for students at this time. It's something we've talked about quite a few times, and we know of other universities like Stanford actually went big on that, where if you're a student and you're bringing your own personally owned laptop to campus, you have to install their BigFix client and get your computer patched and all of that. We have not gone down that road yet, but it's something we talk about periodically, and we might pursue in the future.
yeah, okay, cool. Um, Now, do you have any standard compliance standards that you have to deal with as well and report out compliance? HIPAA, FERPA, things like that.
We absolutely. Again, everything under the sun. We have researchers that are getting funding from all of the different government agencies, including DoD, DOE, state agencies, all kinds of private contracts and things like that. So if there is an acronym out there for some compliance standard, we are having to meet it in one way or another. Some big ones for us are, of course, FERPA that deals with student data, um, uh, HIPAA that deals with medical data, HERA that deals with employee data for people in higher ed. So
Mhm.
we've got all of those, plus all of the CMMC and all of the other government requirements and standards for work done under those contracts. And BigFix does help us
Oh
with
yeah,
those.
yeah. CMMC. We're about to launch a blog on that, on our support for CMMC, which is for named for contractors for the federal government. I thought.
Yes. Well, it is, but we are contract. I mean, when you're getting a federal grant to do some work, you are a contractor to the federal government, and we have
Ah,
hundreds of contracts going at any time with pretty much every federal agency out
I
there.
see. So in that particular one, how does BigFix help you comply, or well, I guess report and comply? Can you speak to that a little bit?
I can speak to it a bit. This is still a pretty new area for us, so it's something we're just getting into now. But the BigFix compliance module basically has checks that say, does this particular endpoint and this particular operating system meet whatever particular security standard that's out there. So there are the CIS benchmarks, the DISA and STIG benchmarks are all out there. They're already built into BigFix, where you can basically create a compliance baseline and then test are whatever computers you've applied that baseline to matching uh, that baseline. So you can do it for that just auditing component. Then you can take the next step and actually issue actions against those computers to say, make this computer comply with whatever specific check. You must have a password matching these complexity rules. You must have the local firewall turned on with a default deny rule. Those sorts of things like that. And one of the beauties of BigFix is that it's a continuous compliance. It's not just a one time when you build the computer. It actually lets you continually monitor, does the computer continue to meet that particular standard, and then issue or basically correct it if it falls out of compliance.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we hear from customers all the time. They really rely on that continuous compliance capability. Which is really different from other systems, which have to always call back and get their instructions over and over again. And we store that policy at the endpoint, and so it's always pushing itself back to a state of compliance based on what you specify. So very, very useful. So which BigFix modules do you own?
We have the full life cycle. So let's see. You would be able to tell me better than I would probably know off the top of my head all that's included, but patching, inventory, life cycle,
Compliance.
compliance,
Yep.
mobile. We have some mobile licensing in there,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's some other modules that I'm forgetting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you covered it. So you're using inventory for software inventory? Is that
We are starting to. One of our projects right now is actually ServiceNow integration, where we're working on importing the software and hardware inventory data from BigFix into the ServiceNow CMDB
Hmm.
module to help us report on that. But there are lots of ways that we've used that data in very ad hoc ways. Like probably shouldn't mention another vendor by name, but there is one of our vendors that provides bibliography management software, and there was a significant change in our licensing for that vendor that made their licensing terms much less favorable to us.
Hmm.
And because the licensing had previously been very favorable, we had pretty much universally deployed their software on computers. Like, it was just part of our default build for computers that were going out to faculty and grad students and researchers. And we needed to find out really quickly who's actually using this thing, not just where is it installed in the environment, who's actually using it, and how often are they using it. Did they just launch it once in 2010 for 10 minutes and have never looked at it again? Or is it something where it's a daily driver that we're seeing activity every day? And within 15-20 minutes, I was able to go into BigFix inventory and actually get real meaningful data on that, and discovered that, like, for something like 2,000 computers where we had it installed, there were only about 50 people that were
Oh
actually
my
using it
gosh.
on a regular basis.
Wow.
And so it sure made that conversation with that vendor go very differently than it might have otherwise. Without that insight of knowing who was using it, what do you do? Do you send a poll out to your users? They're going to be very motivated to say,
Yeah,
"Oh
and
yes, of course we use
you've
that."
got precise usage from
Yeah.
that. That's fantastic. Yeah, we there's three main use cases we found for inventory. One is, okay, prevent over licensing, or look for over licensing. What in your case, prevent and look at under licensing, meaning you got more users than you have licenses for, and then look for vulnerable versions of software. And this was particularly useful in Log4j last December, which I think you probably had some excitement last December, like we all did.
Yes, we did.
Maybe they're looking for vulnerable versions of existing software that had the Log4j logging service in it, and that was good. So speaking of Log4j, how did that go for you?
Um, Again, because we are such a diffuse organization, this isn't something where our information security office can just figure this out for us. This isn't something where there is one small group on a campus that is going to answer the question of, are we vulnerable to this, and do the remediation. This is something where we had to mobilize all of the IT folks across our campus to deal with it. And uh, I actually think this is a really good story about the community around BigFix,
Mm.
because this wasn't something that was built into BigFix on day one. It was something where members of the expand not HCL employees, members of the community, in concert with HCL employees, really banded together and very quickly developed BigFix content to scan and even remediate for the Log4j vulnerability. And I think it was within 2 or 3 days that there was the initial content available, and within a week, BigFix was equipped to actually remediate for
Yeah,
Log4j vulnerabilities in the environment. And that's how I think seeing that kind of community mobilization is a pretty good indicator about any tool, that it's something that has got enough mind share to keep it moving forward.
that is a fantastic story on that real success, because for us to have been in security, I've been in security for like 25 years, and to see a Sev 10 vulnerability out there, which is so rare, and just set the IT world on fire. Like, it's just pretty rare that you see something like that. And your story is great about that, about how it really helped. So what's coming in the future? What's on your horizon with BigFix?
Um, so I'll give you one that's just under the horizon. Something we just did recently, which is HCL just started packaging a large set, more than, I think it's up to close to 200 applications of third party content. So this is another thing that's probably a little unique, in not entirely unique, but it's very common in higher education environments that many users have administrative rights. We are paying people for their creative intelligence
Mhm.
to do research, to discover new things, and
Mhm.
so we give them a lot of rights on their computers, and they have a lot of latitude to go out on the great wide internet and find any utility that they can that will help them meet their goals and install that on their computer and run it in our environment. So it is truly the Wild West in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Um, and so we have, people that are interacting with from Windows machines with Linux need things like PuTTY and WinSCP. Um, every every development environment in that's out there. So Python, Go, R, all of those things are just they're all over the place, and it's not like they're just on one set of computers. They're on computers that are just distributed throughout the organization. And so how do you patch and manage those sorts of things? Because I just going and just using something like BigFix Inventory to look at what I have in my environment, it would probably take me 2 weeks just to check the web page for every one of those installed things,
Mhm.
figure out what the latest version was,
Mhm.
and then it would take months to actually develop that content ourselves to patch all of that. So HCL started taking on this giant load of doing that for us, at least
Mhm.
on the Windows side so far.
Mhm.
So we're now patching hundreds of applications that we weren't even thinking about patching before.
Well,
So that's a pretty big
fantastic.
win.
Yeah, that's certainly been a big push of ours to add much more content. We are and plan to continue to be the leader in terms of third-party application content. And that's just in the last year we've been pumping out a lot more of that. Our customers seem to be really delighted. So I understand that you're also a Tenable, or you're using a vulnerability management tool that you're looking to integrate with BigFix. Is that right?
Yes, we have a large Tenable implementation that's scanning our entire campus network daily. Um,
Mm.
and that is something that right now, if you are, in the chemistry department or the art department or any of those sorts of things, you're getting those Tenable reports that say you have all of these vulnerabilities that you need to do something about. That's hard. That's a
Mhm.
lot of work to do something about that and to interpret those reports. And again, we have hundreds of people that are receiving those reports and supposed to do something about them.
Mhm.
So there is a Tenable BigFix integration that basically takes all of the vulnerability data from Tenable, loads it into BigFix, and BigFix will automatically correlate with the content that's available in BigFix and say, "Oh, look, for 60% of these vulnerabilities, you can click one button and deploy the remediations for all of those." So we really think that it will help us close the loop. Like we're getting the data now, but acting on the data is really hard, and BigFix is going to make it much easier for us to act on the data.
Well, that's fantastic, and that's our what we call our insights for vulnerability remediation feature set, which you've got available to you. So yeah, we're really enjoying our relationship with Tenable. It's very symbiotic. We work on this integration and our relationship every week. And so that's fantastic. I think will hopefully be a big help for you in the future.
We definitely think so.
Okay. Uh, well, great. I think we've covered a lot of ground here. And Jeremy, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and thank you so much for being a customer as well. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it, and hopefully our viewers of this will have picked up something as well about what they've seen in real life applications. So again, thank you very much, and keep in touch. And thanks to our audience for joining us today.
Happy to do it. And I also I have to give a shout out to the fantastic BigFix technical advisor team led by Dan Paquette and Kathy Nguyen as the training lead. We have found that team to be just a phenomenal resource. They have been willing to come on site to provide training to recently we had a group of 50 BigFix operators on campus, and they came on site. They did a fantastic training for us. They have always been a terrific resource when we're thinking, hey, we're thinking we could use BigFix to do this. Have you seen somebody else do this? Do you have ideas on how we might do it better?
Mhm.
They have always been willing to help us make the best use out of the tool.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, we're very proud of our TA team.
You should be.
And our support is actually, which just got rated by G2, the customer reference site, as best in the business. So we wouldn't be as successful as we are without them. And thank you for those accolades. I'll make sure Mr. Paquette and Kathy get your note and watch this webinar. So
All right.
great. Okay. Well, thanks so much again, Jeremy, for taking the time and keep in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.